Welcome back to Architects of Change Live, conversations with change makers who are moving humanity forward. Every time we do this show, we try to bring you someone who is moving humanity forward, who is thinking out of the box. And our guest today is exactly that person, Dr. Dan Siegel, who is really extraordinary architect of change. He's got a new book out with Tina Payne Bryson, your co-author. It's called The Yes Brain: How to Cultivate Courage, Curiosity, and Resilience in your child. And I don't know any parent who doesn't want to do that. That's everybody's goal, but it's easier said than done, right?
It is, yes.
So what is, Dan, the yes brain? What is that you're thinking about why that's going to make us better as a nation in the world?
Yeah, so the yes brain is basically a term for when I do workshops, I'll say no very harshly, and we could do it now, but it's a very upsetting experience. I say no harshly, and people have the experience of what a no brain is,
right.
which is a very reactive state where you're getting ready to fight back or flee or freeze up or even faint. And then I'll say yes, 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 very calmly, and then people feel themselves relax and become more open to the world. So what Tina Payne Bryson and I, my co-author, wanted to bring out to the world, and especially to parents and educators, is that children who experience life as a threatening state, whether it's in their community or in their home or in their classroom, are continually creating a no-brain state of reactivity that is a response to threat.
So they're permanently in this no-brain state? Is that what you're saying?
Not permanently, but it's kind of like this. With repeated activation, threat, no.
Don't do this, don't do that,
don't do
stop
that,
it.
Right. Rather than like if I were your child saying, Mom, could I have some ice cream before dinner? You could say, no, Danny, that's a stupid idea. Right. You can feel what that's like.
Yeah. Right.
Or you could say to me, oh my God, that's such a great idea. I'd like to have ice cream too, but the problem is, if we have ice cream, we're not going to have the appetite to eat the nutritious food. So, do you want chocolate or vanilla after dinner? Because you have to eat the nutritious food first.
So are you asking parents to really reframe how they speak to their children? And if so, what are they going to get in return from that?
So here's what a yes brain gets you.
Yeah.
It gets you literally a change in the architecture of the brain. So
Okay, pause at that now. So explain that again, because I know we've spoken several times, and sometimes Dan talks about the brain, and it's kind of hard to follow. But a yes brain, a child's yes brain, changes the architecture, the inside of what their brain looks like?
Absolutely.
Explain that.
Yeah, so let's compare the no brain to the yes brain state and start with the basics of brain science, which is this. Your brain develops based on two big things. Your genetic information, so that's what you're born with, and that's like your temperament. Right? But then you have your experiences.
Your environment.
Your environment is the word, but what environment really means is what your experiences are. Right? It's the same thing. So when people say, oh, environmental influences, they mean, what were your experiences? So an experience drives activity in the brain. So let's say you're growing up in a family which is filled with threat all the time. People yelling at each other, or you want a hug, but you don't get a hug, so you feel really alone and isolated, so you feel threatened that way. Or there's a lot of screaming going on, or obviously physical or sexual abuse. Those create, at the extreme, very intense threat states. But even in more subtle ways, you can have a threat state constantly being activated. So here's the secret of the sauce, or secret sauce, whichever way you like to say it. When you get repeated activation of a state, like threat, 5 minutes later, threat, 5 hours later, threat, a day later, threat, what that does, it actually turns on genes and grows new connections in my brain. So now, literally, the structure of the brain up here has responded to experience. Environmental input is what they call it, but experience, so that now you look at me and I've had, let's say, 5 years of no. I'm going to have one kind of architecture where the chance for me to go into a fight, flight, freeze, or faint state, whether I'm in a relationship with you, or I'm a parent, or I'm a teacher in a school, or I'm running a company or a country, I get in these reactive states that I don't think clearly. And I go, and I narrow my thinking, I shut down my openness to other people's points of view. Literally, when you study the brain, you show that these no brain states, which can be reinforced with experience, make it so you're shut down from new learning.
Okay, so some parents could be sitting out there like freaking out that they've, done this at home.
Yes.
Not on purpose, right?
No.
Just everybody's rushing. No, you can't have this. Go upstairs and do your homework. No, I said that. So they're thinking like, oh my God, I've changed the architecture of my kid's brain.
Yes.
Probably mine was changed too by my parents. How do
Mine
I
too, yes.
change course? Can I take my child's architecture and move it back into the yes brain? Yes.
The answer is absolutely yes. And that's why the yes brain gives you strategies at any age.
At any age.
To actually say, what do I do as a parent? Okay. Or if you're a grandparent or anyone taking care of a kid, even teachers, what do I do to create a relational experience that is how I communicate with my child so that the yes brain is created? So in a series of books that I edit for academic purposes, we have 2 books that really look deeply at what's the structural change involved in a yes brain. And there's a long story, and I don't want to go into all the details unless you want to hear them, but the bottom line is a yes brain state creates a more open frame of mind so that with your child, the way you do it, we have 4 letters to remember it's a cheesy acronym. But
you're good with acronyms.
It spells the word BRIE, B-R-I-E.
Okay.
So the first is balance.
Okay.
And we have strategies in the book for how you do each of these 4. And the idea of balance is that you are the architecture of change for your child's brain.
Oh, very well put. You are the architect of change for the architecture of your child's brain.
That's a better way to put it. Thank you. Good edit.
You can build it into a yes brain by the way you talk.
Yes.
By your tone.
Yes.
By what you say, because this also builds resilience, right?
Absolutely. So the way that's the R, you're jumping ahead, that's great.
Okay.
So the balance that you build is you say, what? Let's say you were my daughter. Whatever you're feeling is okay to feel. So I give you the space, this is where the balance comes in, where whatever's happening in you, you just can embrace it. It's like the Rumi poem, The Guest House. Whatever arises, welcome it in.
Right.
If you were in a no-brain family and I was your dad, I would say, don't feel sad, young lady. Don't do that, like that. Or even more subtly, oh, you don't feel sad, do you, Maria? You're not really angry, are you, Maria? When you're sad and angry, and it's like...
confusing.
It's so confusing,
right.
Which feels threatening because it's not about the truth. So the yes brain approach is quite the opposite. It says, tell me what's actually going on with you. Oh, I think I'm feeling, I don't know, heaviness in my chest.
So this is also really requires teachers, parents, grandparents really to slow down, because you can't do this, what you're advocating, unless you really slow down and are present.
Totally, exactly.
With the child to really kind of have the conversation that you're saying.
Yeah, and initially it may be kind of a growth edge for a parent or a caregiver or a teacher to learn to be present. But once you learn that, this becomes very natural, because the balance is saying, just be with reality. Just be present, just like you're saying it, with reality. And that's the balance part. The resilience says, hey, I'm going to help you learn a skill. If you're my daughter, I'm not just about controlling your behavior. I'm about seeing the mind beneath the behavior. What I mean by mind? Your feelings, your thoughts, your hopes, your dreams, your subjective experience. So what I'm going to do is try to build the architecture as an architect that changes the skill structures you have. Literally, in your brain, I as a parent have the opportunity, and these are where we get these skills from the science, to actually build skills into your brain.
So every parent really wants their child to learn resilience, right? Because life is full of ups and downs.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's one of the kind of primary things that you want your child is to be resilient.
Exactly. So take, for example, we have the honor of a professor at Stanford, Carol Dweck, who writes about mindsets. And there's a fixed mindset where a child believes, you're either smart or not. You're either good at sports or not.
It's a judgmental kind of.
Very judgmental about yourself. And so when you come up with people judging you and you didn't do as well on the test or on the athletic field or whatever, you avoid risking being exposed, so they become underachievers. That's the fixed mindset. But what Carol Dweck showed is if you have a growth mindset, you say everything is about effort and disciplined learning. So if I try on a test and I don't do well, or I try on an athletic field and I don't do well, or I'm doing a musical thing and I don't do well enough, I just have to try harder. I gotta take those, things other people might call failures and just realize those are opportunities to learn more. That's called a growth mindset. So when she supported the book by endorsing it, we were so excited because this is a parenting approach that builds that positive approach to life with resilience. It says, hey, we all can try and not do as well as we want to, and that just is a time to try harder or try in a different way. That's what resilience is all about.
So what else are the other two parts of the acronym?
The I and E are insight and empathy.
Insight. And do you believe that we can, because we talk a lot about, or I also talk, we want to kind of try to build as architects of change a more compassionate, empathetic culture and society, and there's always this debate about whether you can teach children empathy.
You absolutely can. And
you absolutely can teach a child empathy.
Here's the way to think about it. If you were my daughter and you were in, this is what the research shows, in the family I was a father in, and I was creating this with my partner, we were creating this experience for you, and we never looked at your mind. We never said, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? What did you feel when that movie had this and this happening, or this event happened? Then we would be teaching you that life is only about the external physical aspects of reality. And research shows, and I can tell you what the research is if you want, but when you look at the research, it shows that families like that have kids who don't develop the skill of reflecting inwardly, which is what insight is. They don't develop the capacity in a deep way to say, here's where I am now, here's where I was in the past, here's where I'd like to go in the future. That's called mental time travel by Endel Tolding. It's a beautiful term.
Mental time travel.
Isn't that nice?
Fascinating.
And Tolding is this beautiful researcher up in Canada who made up that term, and I love it. And when you look at the brain aspects of it, and Endel and I were teaching together actually in Berlin a few years ago, and it was so exciting about narrative and culture and the brain and stuff. But what the issue that really became clear is that mental time travel is a learnable skill.
A learnable skill.
Yeah. In other words, you as a person, whether you're a kid or an adolescent or an adult, if you don't have it, you can actually learn it.
So what if you're raised, in the no-brain society structure, right? A lot of, and just, your parents weren't taking the time to say, how do you feel? They were more like, buck up, let's move on, got to work harder. That's how a lot of people were raised. This book will help them raise their children differently, but how can they turn their no brain at 30, 40, 50 or beyond into a yes brain? Is that possible?
It is possible. And in fact, we have sections in the Yes Brain book that are for the person, the adult, reading the book, so they can develop themselves.
So the adult is really kind of doing to their children what was done to them.
Unfortunately, when we don't take a parenting from the inside out approach, where you really look at your own experiences, you can do that. Now, here's the interesting thing, and this is my next book called Aware. There is a technique I call it the Wheel of Awareness, where you actually can systematically cultivate insight and even empathy. You asked about empathy, so that you develop a yes brain state. And let me give you an example. And this is a sad story, but I was asked to go do an educational, intervention really at a high school in Northern California. It's public, Palo Alto High School and Gun High School, where there are a lot of suicides.
Got it.
And the question was, why were these adolescents jumping in front of the train that goes from San Francisco to San Jose? And so I met with the teachers, I met with the parents, I met with the students, and the students made a video of it, and then they sent it to me, and because you can't see them, it's just the back of their heads, I'm doing the talking, you can watch it on my website. And the thing I want to bring up for you here is I said to them, every parent, for the most part, wants the best for their kids. And in these VUCA times, VUCA, volatile is the V, uncertain is the U, I didn't make this up, this is a media acronym, complex and volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So VUCA.
Wow.
We all feel this nervousness as parents. We're in a threat state. So you want to cling to something that will give you a feeling, at least, that you're guaranteeing something positive for your kid in very scary times. So a lot of parents are focusing on something with a number to it, like your grade point average. Get this high grade point average. Like the SAT score you get, or like the small percentage that a particular college accepts into their college, so you get into an elite college, right? In all these ways, it's understandable parents want to lock onto something, but when you look at the research, actually, what those things do is they create a no-brain state in a kid where, oh my God, if I don't get this certain number, low number for acceptance into college, I got into that college, or high for a GPA, then I'm a failure.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of kids who feel that their parents have these expectations.
And they do too. Yeah, this is the thing about it. So what I said to them was, at the end of this talk, because you can't see it in the video, but I'm looking at their faces. They're so scared. These are their peers that they grew up with that are jumping in front of the train. These are parents who've seen these kids, end their lives because they're overwhelmed. Now that's the ultimate sense of helplessness, right? When you say, there is no choice for me.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of teen suicides.
Unfortunately.
Right.
I just did another intervention in Colorado.
And so what are you finding is the cause of that? Is it because kids are feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or because we're all parenting the wrong way, or what?
It's a great question. I don't think anyone has the answer, and I'm not a suicide expert for adolescents by any means. But what people are suggesting who do know about that are a couple of things. One, the anxiety levels are incredibly high, which is part of a no-brain state.
I think that's really important. The anxiety levels in kids today are off the charts. They're really off the charts, I find, with everybody.
That's true.
Whether they're kids in school or kids trying to find their jobs. My kids in their 20s, their anxiety levels are
high.
Off the charts.
And then related to that is depression.
Right.
And then related to those two things, which I think is the unspoken issue, is sleep deprivation. They're doing so much homework and so much stuff, people are not getting enough sleep, and then you're more irritable, you can't pay attention as well, you can't remember as well, and so you become more impulsive.
So are you saying also that underneath of all of that is the no brain, actually underneath
all that stuff
is then the overwhelm, the anxiety, the depression, the lack of sleep,
all that stuff,
the lack of hope.
And then you add one more thing, which is what I end that talk with at Pali High School. I said to them, we've had this view in our culture, maybe since the time of Hippocrates, 2,500 years ago. Hippocrates said, your mind is only coming from your head.
Right.
Well, if the self comes from your mind, then that view says yourself, myself, all of ourselves only come from the head or from your body. Now what that does is it makes you believe the self is a solo self, an isolated self. I think what's happening is as people gotten more and more anxious, they, ironically, with the internet the way it's become, and people putting up images of these idealized ways of living, people get this feeling like, I'm not that. That's when I get aware of what I'm really going through, it's not like that, platform, what it's saying, those photographs. No. So people are feeling like they're missing out, they're inadequate. There's this constant sense of falling behind. And there's this feeling, this is really sad to say, but there's this feeling of incredible isolation that the culture we live in reinforces. So what I said to them was this. I said, if you imagine the analogy that we're candles, and you grow up in a family and a school system and a culture that says, Maria, who you are is a candle, you're the wax of the candle. And to succeed in life, this is about success, for you to succeed, you need to be the brightest candle in the box. So when so-and-so university is looking at your resume, they go, oh, we're going to take Maria, look at her, she's the glowiest candle. And then all that does is, first of all, make you feel alone. It makes it so that when you're in school and you see somebody else's wick is lit, you want to blow out their wick and blow out his wick so that you're the brightest one when it comes to people evaluating you, comparing you. And the sad thing is that in the end, when it's just about you as the wax, and this is just me, it actually is a meaningless life. But you've succeeded according to what culture says. I think that's part of what's going on. Think about a world instead where we said, who you are is, yes, the wax, get good sleep, enjoy your body, feed your body, exercise your body. That's the body, all real. We're not denying the body. That's a me. But you're also a we. You are the light. And so what you would do then, if you said, my identity is the light that comes from my flame, is you'd see some candle next to you who wasn't lit up. You lean over and you light her wick, and then you straighten up, and then you lean over, you light his wick. What did it take away from your flame to light them up?
So how do you...
No, really. What did it take away from your flame?
Obviously nothing.
Nothing. And what did it do to the world?
Lit them all up. Or
there
gave
you
you
go.
A community, gave you a sense of belonging.
That's how we have to live. You are the wax and the light. And that's the kind of self we need to realize. A me and a we, and you know I've probably said this with you before, but I'm we. If we start raising the next generation to realize the identity is a we, M-W-E, a me in the body, take care of your body, a we that's collective, we're going to light up this world in ways we haven't seen in a long, long time.
Beautifully put. Dan Siegel, the author of The Yes Brain. This is, what number book is this for you? 12th book. I found one of his books called Parenting from the Inside Out, one of the most helpful books to me when my kids were small. This book, I think, will help anybody raising a kid or anybody who's in that kind of space where they think they may have had a no-brain parenting experience, and that they can change their no-brain into a yes brain, and that will light up their life, and I think their children's life, because they'll see them lit up, and who doesn't want to be lit up?
Absolutely.
So Dan Siegel, thank you so much for joining us.
So great
the book is out. It's called The Yes Brain. Buy it. See ya. Thank you.